Hello, everyone, and welcome to Peak Performance Podcast, episode number 5. Today, we'll be talking about ChatGPT, the latest hotness that everyone is talking about all over YouTube and on pretty much every podcast out there, except we haven't heard much about ChatGPT and AI's impact in the fitness world. And so that's what we're going to talk to you about today. For those that don't know us yet, the Peak Performance Podcast's focus is on helping ambitious professionals reach their peak performance in all areas of their life through cutting-edge fitness insights from two of the world's most knowledgeable fitness consultants that I personally know of, at least. My co-hosts, Andrew Manashian, former IFBB Australasians men's physique champion, and Mick Togue, CEO of Performance U. So to kick things off, I have seen many examples on Twitter and elsewhere and a few on YouTube. There aren't that many people talking about ChatGPT in fitness, but there's a little bit of chatter in there that I've seen. And I've seen people use ChatGPT to create fitness programs for them and even nutritious programs. In fact, Andrew, I think you and I recently experimented a little bit. We had it create a fitness program and a nutrition program that spans a whole week, and it did a pretty good job. But Andrew, I think you probably had some thoughts about its shortcoming. Why don't you tell us about your opinion as a trainer who trains other trainers? What did you think of ChatGPT's skill level in personal training?
So far, it was decent. It was definitely decent. Like I would say a 5 or a 6 out of 10. It was very good. Like I was impressed. I didn't even think it would get close to that. So that was pretty good. So I remember because we tried a few times and we had to be very specific with it. So like when we just wrote out, oh, can you make a program? It was like, oh, do shoulders on this day, do back on this day. It was very basic. And then we got a little bit more specific with the question and it got a little bit better with it as well. But I remember we tried a few times and we couldn't get it to give all the information that we wanted. So for example, it wouldn't say barbell bench press, 3 sets of 12, this tempo or whatever. And it wouldn't say that specific, but it would tell you, do this on this day, do that on that day, do blah, blah, blah. So it was on its way there, that's for sure. And it was the same sort of thing with the nutrition side of things. So we had the same problem. We asked the question, we tried to get specific, but it just wouldn't give us the exact amount. So I think the example we used was like a 2,000 calorie diet or something like that. And it gave us some examples of the food. So like, for example, it said tuna and bread and blah, 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 or whatever it may have said. But it wasn't very specific with the exact measurements. And it wouldn't tell you the calories per meal. It would give you like the calories at the end of the day, but nothing added up. So it wasn't 100% on track. But overall, for the information that we gave it, it was pretty good. But yeah, there's definitely room for improvement. But is it version 3? Is ChatGPT on version 3 at the moment from memory?
Oh, it's version 1. It's version 1. I did one update a couple of days ago, but it's still only 2 months old.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I don't remember which platform I saw it on, but someone posted up an example, like a visual example of the amount of information that ChatGPT had, and it was like currently the current version was like
Ah,
a dot, and then it said the new one is going to be like this
yeah.
big circle. So I'm sure it will improve massively when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. ChatGPT is GPT 3.5. The next version, GPT-4, you're right. They're predicting it'll be like 1,000 times more powerful and with 1,000 times more knowledge and data.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm actually, because when you and I tried it, you didn't look too impressed, but because we had to tinker around with it a lot. We had to give it a lot of feedback and say, no, include the calories. No, that workout doesn't make sense. We had to give it a lot of feedback in order for it to eventually come up with a decent program. It was almost like dealing with a newbie trainer, someone who's, it was almost like dealing with someone who knows fitness but isn't a professional personal trainer. And we're asking that person to be a professional personal trainer and put together a fitness plan. It was almost like that, right? But I'm pretty impressed that you're giving it a 5 out of 6. That's quite impressive because it's early days. It's only 2 months old now. So imagine a year from now.
Yeah, it should be very impressive at that point.
So have you guys heard of any clients asking you about ChatGPT and AI or anyone using ChatGPT and AI for fitness and nutrition?
No, no, not besides myself and you. Apart from that, haven't heard anything about that in relation to fitness anyway.
To be
Interesting.
honest, sorry, Marcus, sorry, you keep going.
No, go ahead.
End of the day, right? It's all internet based, right? AI and ChatGPT. It's getting all its information off the internet, right? Because now, if I go to Google right now and I type in training program, I'm going to get 1.6 billion results, right?
Yep.
I'm going to type in give me a nutrition plan. I'm going to get the same thing. So at the end of the day, it's all generic sort of stuff. Yeah, I think AI ChatGPT is on maybe a different level to Google, but I think it's end of the day, it's all, like I said, internet based, and it's all generic stuff. The difference between, say, Andrew and myself, how we're different, is AI know a person's stress, does it know a person's physiology, does it take into consideration their capabilities. So I think at the end of the day, it's all pretty generic. It's going to give you all pretty generic stuff. So, I mean, as far as like artificial intelligence and in the fitness, I don't think it's going to be that much different to Google as far as giving you a training program and the nutrition plan, because like I said, it's just going to be generic. It's not going to take into consideration the actual client. Because personally, I give a very sort of detailed pre-exercise questionnaire for my clients. I really get to know the client and what they're about. If AI gets to a point where it does that, hey, by all means, it definitely is taking the world by storm. I think it has passed it passed like an MBA exam, passed the
Yeah.
bar exam. Apparently, it's
Yeah.
passed the medical exam too. So
Yeah.
hey, fuck, pretty freaky stuff, man. But
Yeah.
as far as writing programs and nutrition plans, yeah, you're gonna get some good stuff of it, but not quite the same as actually working with an actual expert in the field. So that's just my take on it.
That
So
makes
also
sense.
good to see, like, how do they move? Do they have any injuries?
That's what
Like,
I'm saying. Yeah.
do they have any
So
gut
that's
issues? Blah blah blah.
what we take into consideration when we actually when we first meet with the client. So yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. But keep going. Sorry to bother you, man.
You're right, bro. That's all I want to say with that.
That could be, Mick, to your point, you're saying that the fitness advice that it gives you is like the average of everything on the internet, right? So it's very generic. And you guys are telling me that you haven't heard any of your clients or hardly anyone in the fitness circles talking about using ChatGPT for fitness and nutrition purposes. So maybe that's why. Maybe that's why people aren't really using it in fitness yet, because of the fact that fitness needs to be tailored. Fitness and nutrition programs need to be tailored to every individual. So that's
Absolutely.
Having said that, what you could do with ChatGPT, that pre-exercise questionnaire that you're talking about, you could take the output of that questionnaire, feed it into ChatGPT. You could say, hey, ChatGPT, here's a questionnaire I filled out with key information about myself and my weight, my habits, how do I smoke, my stress levels, what do I do for work, yada. And it could actually customize the program for exactly what you
Okay, that's very interesting. So
yeah, it can do that.
it actually can do that.
It can do that, yeah.
Shit, I think I better find another job. I'm gonna be out of a job very soon. My job here is done. No more PTs, man. It's gonna be all artificial PTs. Like, true story. Like, we're living in very interesting times here.
Andrew and I talked about this 8 months ago, like back in August when we had lunch in Istanbul. We were talking about this. We actually came up with the idea of creating a AI powered personal trainer that's on 24/7 in your pocket. The technology wasn't ready for it, so we didn't move ahead with it. But yeah, it's very much in the realm of possibility now with ChatGPT coming out. But one problem with ChatGPT is every time you log in, it doesn't remember you. So you have to repeat everything over and over again.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to repeat everything. Yeah. Sorry?
I'm sure that could be fixed. I don't think that would be too hard to fix.
That could be fixed. Yeah, like the three of us could work with an AI engineer and develop an app that does store that information and then runs on ChatGPT. So theoretically, that could be fixed. So you're right, Mick. It's only a matter of time before one ChatGPT gets really good in terms of its knowledge and its logic and its intelligence. I think it has an IQ of a postgraduate right now. So it could very well reach a point where it's good enough to give someone tailored advice. And then you could add a layer on top of it where it could store information about the individual. And then on top of that, what you could do theoretically is all these wearable devices, you could feed that data into it as well. So I know earlier you said, Mick, that the AI doesn't know your stress levels. It's not keeping up with your weight measurements. It's not checking up your heart rate or whatever. But with wearables, it'll be able to do that.
Like I said, you said now it's in its infancy stage, right?
Yeah.
It's only 2 months old, you said. Geez, imagine a years from now, what's going to happen? Like I said, man, interesting times ahead. So
Absolutely.
We could argue like some of the in-person stuff with like face-to-face PTs. How's it going to monitor your form? How's it going to correct your form? How's it going to ask you questions and blah, blah, blah. I suppose that you could have a chat with it or something like that. But yeah, we'd have to figure out what couldn't it do. And that would be like the differentiator between real. Yeah, look, I think we had this discussion about the online fitness trend last time about online personal trainers and in-person personal trainers. There's always going to be the people that want someone actually there looking over them, holding your hand and talking to them, blah, blah, blah. So there's always going to be a market for in-person personal trainers, but it's definitely going to change the game once it's taken off properly. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I think in person, I still highly recommend in person training, even to my online clients. If they like, even if they can just pay a trainer like maybe for half an hour, 20 minutes, just to check their technique. Because when it comes to technique with me, I'm very OCD. I'm very big on movement, and if a client's not moving right, it's okay. So I think there's definitely still a time and place for in person training. That's not going nowhere. That's definitely here. I thought brick and mortar gyms was a dying thing, to be honest, but no, there's definitely a time and place for in-person personal training and group training as well. Personally, I would rather work with a coach online because obviously now I've been doing this for a long time, so I know everything back to front when it comes to movement and training. But I think for beginners to intermediate, still highly recommend in person. But
Yeah, an AI can't, for beginners, like beginners oftentimes need motivation. They need someone to push them. The other thing they often need is accountability. They need someone to be accountable to. They can't be accountable to an AI because it's not a person. They need a person to be accountable to. So they're accountable to their trainer. And yeah, that's really people who struggle with their fitness journeys and they hire a personal trainer. That's one reason they hire a personal trainer is for an accountability partner, right? And an AI will never be able to provide that because it could act out being an accountability partner. It could shoot off a reminder on their phone saying, hey, you didn't work out today. Hey, you really need to go to the gym. But are you really going to listen to a robot? Like if a robot is yelling at you, or do you really care? You'll just say, shut up. You'll just say, shut up, leave me alone. Go away. Turn off.
Turn off. Yes.
Yeah, delete the app.
it could be a good thing, but not for like a real person. But yeah, especially if we're getting paid to do it. Yeah, that was a robot talking to me. Yeah, pretty much the same as you, Marcus. Yeah, just shut.
Look, I was just thinking about it. So I think I've told you this before. When I was younger, I wasn't a fit family, blah blah blah, and then I wanted to be bigger and stronger. I just didn't know. I didn't know exercise was the key to that. I thought you just grew into that. I was young, man. I didn't know any better. But when I was 13, I went down the rabbit hole. Finally got access to the internet and figured out everything for myself and taught myself everything. But if I had access to that information like ChatGPT when I was 13 or even younger, my knowledge would have accelerated exponentially. So I suppose in the fitness industry, or just for the curious minded in general that want to learn about these things, I think it'll be a great tool for that. Because again, if I had access to this when I was young, I would have been light years ahead of where I am right now. So yeah, it could come in handy for kids, young kids, or just people that want to learn about fitness or how does it all work or how do calories work? How do I put a program together? What are the principles? Blah, blah, blah. If you don't have access to thousands of dollars to go and do mentorships and learn in workshops or in real life events, then yeah, it could be a very powerful tool from that aspect.
That's a great point. And yeah, because I don't think there's any personal trainer program out there where you can just call up your personal trainer and just text your personal trainer and ask him any question you want. You could, but that's not part of the deal, right? You could occasionally text your personal trainer and ask him a question. You could maybe occasionally give him a call, but you can't do that 24/7, right? So if while eating dinner, you're wondering what's the impact of calcium on my sleep, you can't just call your personal trainer and ask him because he's having dinner. But you can quickly go to ChatGPT and get an answer like that. In fact, a little while ago, Mick and I were talking about fat burning, and we were talking about the impact of ice baths on converting your body's regular fat into brown fat, right? And then what I wondered was, is brown fat easier to burn than white fat? No, Mick is like super knowledgeable, but that's probably a question that doesn't get asked very often. It's like a very esoteric kind of question. And so we Googled it and I couldn't get a straight answer anywhere on Google. I just couldn't get an answer. I asked ChatGPT, I got an answer in 2 seconds. Yes, brown fat metabolizes easier than white fat.
Oh, interesting.
Yep. Yep.
There you go. There's definitely there's a place for ChatGPT, man. I've gotten some great stuff off it. It's actually a game changer.
Yeah, yeah. It all depends. We also have to take into account the person, like we were talking about how in real life personal training or online personal training. Myself at 13 would have loved a tool like that because I don't mind typing in stuff and reading and blah, blah, blah. But then there's always going to be the people that are like, screw that computer stuff. I want to listen to someone in real life and talk to someone and ask my questions to a real person and everything. But yeah, we can't deny it's going to change the game. It's definitely going to change things. But, you know, there's always going to be a time and a place for in real life and person on person as opposed to just online. But yeah, I think it's a great tool because again, if I was back to 13 and this was available, I would have went very deep down that rabbit hole and learnt everything I wanted to know much more quicker and more efficiently. As back when I was 13, there was like barely any information out. It was so hard to, decipher through all of that information out there. How do you make a program? What's the right way of nutrition? Blah, blah, blah. Like macros weren't a big thing back then. Intermittent fasting wasn't a big thing back then. Alternating sets and supersets and GBC, like all of that stuff was like very, very niche. It was hard to come by. Whereas now it's like just about every gym you go to, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm doing a GBC program. Oh, I'm incorporating face pulls and I'm doing trap 3 to balance out my shoulder ratios and I'm doing macronutrients and blah, blah, blah. Like now it's everywhere. But I think that ChatGPT would be very useful to decipher through the bullshit. You just get a straight answer because you go on Google and it's okay, how do I do X? And now so I have to read this article. I got to read that one. I got to read this one. I got to see who's credible. Blah, 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 blah. Whereas ChatGPT is going to get to the point where it's just, here's my question. Here's the answer. Done. Move on. Next. So I think it's very useful from that standpoint.
We had to learn the hard way, Andrew. We had to do trial and error back in our days, back when I was 14, 15. I remember training in my garage gym, man. All I was doing was intermittent muscles, chest and biceps. 6 months later, I had my posture of a fucking hunchback. And then I had a lot of corrective exercises work to do, man. So we had to learn the hard way. More about trial and error. Not so much reading and stuff, but yeah, I got all my stuff just from implementing stuff that I experimented myself. But yeah, that ChatGPT, it's as you said, when you go to Google, it gives you, got to read this, got to read that, got to read that. Whereas ChatGPT gives you like a straight answer and a very detailed answer.
Although it does sometimes make stuff up. It sometimes bullshits, right? It's good at bullshitting. Like it's good at bullshitting and sounding like it knows what it's talking about.
Yeah, that's right.
Some personal trainers out there.
But actually, I was actually at the start of the session. I was going to say it's like most PTs where they think, oh, they're giving like an individualized program, but no, you're just giving that generic shit that you're doing that you give to every single one of your clients. So
I'm going to be very curious to see how good is it going to be on version 4? Because if that's going to be 1,000 times more data and blah, 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 like it's going to be very interesting to see that. Because if we put in the same question, let's say all right, write me up a fitness plan for someone that wants to lose weight, wants to train 3 days, wants to do 45 minutes per session, has no injuries, wants to focus on growing their calves and anything else that we may add in there. If that puts a specific program that I would be impressed with, that's going to be a game changer for sure. For example, Mick, if we look at a program and we're both like, dude, I would have wrote up something similar, that's going to be very interesting to see how that's going to impact the fitness industry.
Yeah. Look, I'm definitely going to play around with it a little bit. I haven't really got into it in much detail, but I'm gonna experiment it a little bit as far as how specific can it give me a program. I'm actually interested to see where I can go with it.
I think it will. I think it's going to actually enrich the fitness industry and enrich people's fitness journeys. Because like you said earlier, Andrew, when you were young, you couldn't get easy access to satisfy your curiosity about fitness. So if someone is curious about fitness and interested in fitness, having instant access to an answer, I think that will help them accelerate their fitness journey because they won't have to go and dig all over the internet. They'll just get an answer right away. And so the path from just starting to starting a program or signing up with a personal trainer, I think that path will be shortened because you don't have to spend so much time trying to figure things out on your own. You just hurry up, get your answers, figure out what to do, ask ChatGPT for a little bit of direction, and then connect with a personal trainer on more to fine tune and tailor those answers for you.
Yeah, definitely. Like when I was younger, so it was, I don't know what you want to call it, there's lack of knowledge or whatever it may have been. It took me a long time to ever have a coach myself because I did so much research and everything on my own. But it was the same thing. Like I know that I would have accelerated even further if I had a mentor earlier or a good coach earlier. If ChatGPT, I don't know how it would actually work, but maybe it could even incorporate something like, oh, the person's, oh, I want to learn more. What's the best way to do it? Even if it was something as simple as that, a 13-year-old kid and ChatGPT recommended it would be a good idea to get a trainer or someone that knows everything that you want to know on blah, blah, blah. That would have accelerated me years ahead as well. So that's, again, we don't know if ChatGPT is going to do something like that, but regardless, let's say it's got the knowledge of, I don't know, 60% of a good trainer. That's going to be so much easier to move forward as opposed to just going through Google and having to decipher on your own. Is this good information? Is this the right answer? I don't know. I've read 15 articles. I've got all this information. I don't know what the real answer is. But yeah, even if ChatGPT got it right 60% of the time, that 60% is going to be significantly quicker as opposed to if you're doing it all on your own. So I think any way you slice it, it's a very useful tool and can help pretty much anyone that's willing to go on there and do some research.
Yeah, man, especially the quality of trainers I've seen lately, man. I've seen some terrible trainers, and I still do now. I think that whole the qualification has to change in regards to PT. You got a, what is it, Australian Institute of Fitness. You get a,
Yeah,
you do an 8-week course, and all of a sudden,
you're a
I
trainer.
mean, you're a trainer, and you got your clients, you got the client's health and fitness in your hands. It's like, nah, something needs to be done in regards to the qualifications. Because I'm telling you, ChatGPT is, I'd say, is better than maybe 70 or 80% of trainers. That's the quality I've seen when I'm at gyms lately. So yeah, something definitely needs to be done in regards to qualifications when it comes to PTs.
I remember when I did the qualification, I didn't learn a thing. Like I knew everything already because I was doing so much research on my own. I'm like, you're not
Yeah,
telling me anything, and what you're telling me is I wouldn't even do that. This is some
please.
basic shit.
100%,
Yeah,
100%. Like I said, we did it for our own experience.
yeah. The majority of what I learned, like where I leveled up very quickly was when I've done courses with some of the best coaches in the world. You learn from like Sebastian Oreb or Tony Battaji, or I learned from the Poliquin group and blah, 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 all of these really big names. Like every time I did a course like that, I learned a ton more. And then when I've done mentorships, I learned a ton more as well. Like it's like a shortcut. Learn it all on your own or pay someone to learn from them who's already mastered it. Like you could argue this for any industry out there. It's a way better option to just, if you can, pay your way ahead and just get the shortcut and get there. Like why? We could even argue this for as a personal trainer. So let's say you're a client. I've had it so many times where they're just like, oh, I want to do it on my own. It's like, really? You want to go through the 20 years of experience that I went through to get to the level I'm at? Or you could just pay me and you can have all that information within weeks. Like it's a no-brainer. But again, we talked about this on another episode where people are like, it's like they'll spend money on a car, on this, on a present, on a holiday, blah, 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 and they won't spend it on their health. It's like it's mind-boggling, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm just too lazy to figure things out on my own. If there's something that I want to know, I'll get that expert in that field, pay them the money. Okay, just like I said, yeah, we're just too lazy to figure out on my own. I'll just pay the big money and I'll get it off the experts, man. That's just the way I'll do it.
The other thing ChatGPT can't do is it can't innovate because it doesn't have unique experiences, right? Because it's getting its knowledge from the internet. So it can't go and experiment in the gym and learn new techniques and find out more cutting edge fitness practices. Yeah, it won't be able to innovate. It'll be very, if you want the cutting edge fitness advice tailored to you, you'll probably have to get a personal trainer who has lots of experience and has a lifetime of experience to be able to get creative and create a very creative and innovative plan just for you.
Absolutely. ChatGPT can give a person a program that they don't enjoy. I mean,
yeah.
So if you're not enjoying the program, what's the point of doing that program? I think
Yeah.
I've got this asked a lot of times. Hey Mick, what's the best program to do? Okay, the best program to do is the one that you enjoy, the one that you can stick to. And I can give you the best program in the world, but if you're not going to stick to it, that makes it the worst program in the world. So that's where sort of the expert of good trainers comes into play when it comes to that sort of stuff. We're very bespoke, very individualized, like you mentioned earlier, Marcus. It's very customized. With myself and Andrew are very customized to the client. and what they're capable of and what they enjoy, etc.,
I spoke
etc.
about this on another episode. I was mentioning the three pillars. Like there's the training, there's nutrition, there's the accountability. So, maybe it can get a few things right with training, maybe it can get a few things right with nutrition, but how's it going to keep you accountable? It's never going to be as good as someone in real life telling you what to do. Like you were saying before, like you can just turn off. I don't want to listen to you anymore. You can't do that with a trainer. You can't tell a trainer to turn off. They'll tell you to off. I'm sure it's going to have its limitations, but again, as it evolves, I'm sure that a lot of those limitations will be overcome. But yeah, you're never going to be able to replace the in real life stuff. But again, for people like me and you, Mick, let's just say it. I don't know. Let's just say the knowledge of it just went super crazy. The IQ was through the roof, had 1,000 times more information, blah blah blah. It might be able to help us out with certain things. Like, yeah, because we all know the questions to ask. So
Exactly.
we'll be like, okay, I have a client that has an impingement right here, and like I'm not the rehab expert. I know a decent amount about rehab, but I'm definitely not an expert by any means. As opposed to me going and do a rehab course and this and that and blah blah blah. I'm like, oh, it hurts here and it hurts when they do XYZ movement. What could it be? And then it shows you the anatomy and tells you the answer, what it could be, blah blah blah. So it could be a useful tool for trainers to actually level up the questions that they, and yeah, maybe they just use that knowledge from ChatGPT and then apply it in real life. Like I said, any way you look at it, I think it is a very useful tool. But yeah, there's certain things that I don't think it could ever replace. Unless we end up in some dystopian future where they make robots and put the AI into a robot and then it can be there in real life and do all this crazy shit. But yeah, that's some what was it, Ridley Scott type movie shit, and let's hope it doesn't get to that point. But what's in it? Elon Musk was sort of warning of the dangers of AI, how it could be used and everything. So let's hope that it is used for good and doesn't go down some crazy dystopian nightmare shit.
Have you guys seen a movie called Ex Machina?
I have.
You seen it?
Yeah.
That's scary.
So it's worrying.
Scary.
It's worrying. Yeah,
Yeah.
she basically, the owner's mind, and
Yeah.
yeah, it was scary when all that happened, eh?
Yeah. And she looks real, right? She looks completely real. And what was interesting is that the two characters in the movie, they knew that underneath the human looking skin is just a machine. But it didn't matter to them, because on the outside, it looks just like a woman. Yeah. When I think of that movie, I think of the last scene where, spoiler alert for anyone listening who hasn't watched it yet, but the last scene where she leaves him locked into that compound to starve to death, basically. And she just bails.
Yeah, it was smart. Like or the AI or whatever you want to call it, was very smart in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's been a while since I watched it, but I do remember it, and yeah, it was scary. I was there. It was like it wasn't like horror type scary where it's, oh, I got an axe and I'm coming after you and blah blah blah. It wasn't that type of scary. It was scary as an idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just, wow, if things get to that level and we allow AI to get to that level, that's some scary dystopian shit.
Yeah.
Even iRobot, like how one of them, one of them was individually intelligent and the rest were just programmed, and then eventually blah, blah, blah. Like, again, it's some crazy dystopian shit. It all depends on where we go as people and what we allow it to get to. Like I said, if they allow robots to walk around with AI, that's some scary stuff. So let's hope it doesn't get to that level. Let's hope we use it controlled for our benefit. We implement rules and restrictions can be controlled, because yeah, if we have robots walking around with superhuman strength and they can be programmed for certain agendas, that's going to be some scary stuff. So let's hope it doesn't get to that point.
I think our grandchildren are going to be living in scary times, man. To be honest.
Well, he looks like it's headed that way, but
yeah,
fingers
even
crossed.
our children. But who knows?
But I could see a world where you have humanoid AIs walking around, and with a humanoid looking AI robot, like the one in the movie Ex Machina. And she was a very attractive female. She was very seductive, very charming, and was able to really manipulate the other characters' motivations very effectively. Earlier, we were talking about how with an AI personal trainer on your smartphone, you just shut it off. You just say, shut up, and turn it off. Do not disturb. Turn off notifications. But if you got a humanoid robot who's a very attractive female, it's like in that movie, the guy wouldn't have told her to just go away because she seemed like a real person. So I think eventually even that aspect of it will ultimately get replaced by machines. But the one thing I think machines will never be able to replace is empathy. because they don't have bodies, they don't have organs, right? They don't have flesh. So if you have a humanoid looking AI as a personal trainer, he or she, even though it looks totally like a real human, like with skin and hair and everything, won't be able to empathize with you. So if you say, hey, my leg hurts, my ankle hurts, it could say the right words, but it's never felt it.
Good point.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes I used to be robotic, I'm like, nah, it's okay, just push through. But yeah, it's true. But that's a good point. Yeah, definitely, it can't really relate to what you're feeling. So yeah, that's another thing when it compares to in-person trainers and experts in the field. So
I was just remembering, have you guys seen that Boston Dynamics stuff?
Yeah,
It's
good.
scary. That's
Yeah.
very scary. See, like they're
Boston
not as far.
Dynamics.
Yeah, so it's in the US, Boston. So like they're putting together these robots that can move and walk and do all this crazy stuff and jump and fucking tumble and all this stuff. So it looks very scary because you know how we're talking about making a robot and put an AI. A lot of people think of that. I was like, oh, that'll never happen. That's crazy. And then you look at what these guys are actually doing with robots, and you're like, they can do that already. Like these things can walk. These things can jump up and down stairs and do all these difficult movements a lot of humans would even struggle to do. Not everyone is athletic, so arguably a lot of people would struggle to jump up onto a chair and then jump back down. And these robots are doing it, and it's wow, that's worrying that they can do that already. I think it was so the comedian Bill Burr made a few jokes about AI or like robots and stuff like that. Screaming like when he sees it on there, he's like, "Turn that fucking thing off! Take the plug out! Burn it! Get rid of it!" Sort of thing. I'm of the same mind. I don't. I've seen too many movies. Who knows what could happen? It could go batshit insane. Another thing to think about is like, how can you program these things? Can these things be hacked? If people can hack all kinds of things these days, let's just say they go, oh, we're going to make peaceful robots and AI and blah, blah, blah. And then someone comes along and hacks it and makes it bad and evil and serve whatever agenda this person has. So yeah, there's many things to think about. Can it be made to be unhackable and you can't change any of the programming and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's a scary thought. Hopefully nothing bad happens. I guess we're just going to have to see how it plays out.
You bring up the other element of a personal trainer is trust. With a personal trainer, you build that personal relationship and you got that trust going on. And part of that is the empathy element. But with the machine, you don't know what it's going to do. Like it might just lock you up inside of a closet and let you starve to death, like in that movie. You don't know, right? It could, because we humans, we have innate morality and empathy for other humans. Whereas a robot, its objective is just to achieve its objective. If its objectives involve, I don't know, starving you for a week so you can lose fat, it might decide to do that. Throw you in a closet, lock you up so you can lose weight.
Something that we should, the humans, do too, man, not just robots.
Yeah. Okay.
Another thing was, I remember, I can't remember who mentioned it, but if you look at, for example, like what happened, there's multiple incidences in history where it's happened where people have to enforce certain rules. So like police have to enforce this, the military has to enforce that, blah, blah, blah. And exactly like you said, there's a degree of empathy. It's like they understand, oh, I feel sorry, I don't want to enact this rule, I don't want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So what would be the most scariest thing is if the military or the police ever adopt any sort of robotic AI, because there's no more empathy. So it's like they're going to enforce this rule no matter what, regardless of the situation. So that could be very scary. Yeah, I suppose when we start to see law enforcement bringing out some robots and AI, that's when shit's getting real and we should start worrying. So fingers crossed that never happens.
That's interesting. Yeah, that brings up the workforce element of fitness. Is for some jobs out there, like police officer, you need to be fit, or let's say you're a construction worker, you need to be fit, et cetera, or a fireman, right? But if eventually all these jobs are done by robots, then why would humans need physical strength? So that's another interesting thing to think about. But my prediction on that is that as AI does more and more of our repetitive, mundane work, I think us humans, we're going to spend more of our time in interpersonal communication and interpersonal relationships. Because that's one thing, by definition, an AI can't do. It can't do interpersonal communication and relationships because it's not a person. And we know that innately, we human beings, we judge other people based on their appearance, on their physical fitness. So for that reason, I don't think that the desire to look your best and be in great physical shape, I don't think that will disappear. In fact, I actually think it will elevate because people will have more free time. They won't have to work as much. They'll have more free time. And because more jobs are going to shift towards soft skills, interpersonal skills, it'll be more important for the workforce to be able to, for a worker in the workforce to be able to present themselves in front of another person in a appealing way.
Yeah, you're bang on. If robots and everything take over all of the physical tasks, we wouldn't need to be in shape. We wouldn't need to be strong, but it's going to be, you got more free time, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, everyone always wants to look good. It's going to help with attracting partner, blah, blah, blah. So it's definitely something that we wouldn't need, but we would want. And I suppose you're bang on, we'd have more time and if more interpersonal relationships and everything. You could argue the opposite as well. In the workforce right now, looking good is a good thing. It's only going to help you. And people know that, but yet they still don't look good. So it could be argued both ways. But yeah, definitely wouldn't be needed as much. It would more so be a luxury or a want, I think.
So there's a possibility that AI might help elevate the fitness levels of society. It's certainly going to elevate the profession because earlier you guys expressed that the passing the personal trainer certification is too easy, is basically what you guys told me. ChatGPT can pass the bar exam and medical school exam. It can for sure pass this.
Yeah.
So the fitness industry is going to have to raise their standards. So I think you're going to have to see, I think we're going to see more quality personal trainers and less personal trainers who are novices and not as experienced.
So, I mean, I think the lifespan of a PT these days, the average PT is what, 6 months to a year, Andrew?
Yeah, they don't last.
Yeah, I think they've got this sort of flashy lifestyle. I'm going to have free time. Well, I'm going to get paid to do that. And before you know it, 6 months later, it's like, hey, fuck, I've got this person's health and fitness in my hand. I've got life in pretty much this person's life in my hand. I'm like, yeah. And then they think it's all cotton candy and peppermint trails, but no, it's anything but. It's a tough gig. And like you mentioned, Marcus, it's definitely gonna raise the bar for personal trainers because it is very knowledgeable. It does know a lot of stuff. Like you said, it does give you a lot of detailed stuff in regards to training and nutrition.
It sounds like personal training, and I've never been a personal trainer before, but I've worked with many. It sounds like it's a labor of love. Like you really gotta love it to last long in that that role.
Absolutely. You got to deal with a lot of a lot of stuff, man. Especially with you got to do a lot of client shit. Clients not showing up. Clients not being compliant, being lazy, complaining. Oh, I'm hungry. You're hungry. Just starve for 2 hours. What's the big deal? You know, just toughen up a little bit. But just when it comes to stuff like that, yeah, you deal with a lot of crap. But yeah, hey, look, you just got to love what you're doing. That's why, as a coach, you know, it's good to practice what you preach. Most trainers these days don't go down that route as far as practicing what they preach. So,
Crazy when you see a trainer that needs a trainer.
Geez, they all do. I mean, I wouldn't give something to a client where I haven't done before myself. So I'll be sure I've actually experimented it. I've actually tried it before I give it to somebody else. That's my motto that's always been my motto when I first started in the industry. You got to practice what you preach.
Got to care about your clients.
Absolutely, right. You have to care.
Yeah.
You can't just take someone's. I mean, as far as ethic wise, you can't just take someone's money for nothing, right? You got to. I think a transaction is the highest form of flattery. If someone gives you their money, they trust you to actually give them a result, and that's just Andrew and myself. We're results based. That's what you're going to get with us. So definitely, the client's health and their interest in the results is at the forefront.
It's fantastic. So it sounds like trainers who are knowledgeable and also really good with people will probably thrive in this new age of artificial intelligence. And it sounds like both clients or just people on their fitness journeys and personal trainers will have a lot more tools to achieve their goals, themselves and help their clients achieve their goals.
Absolutely. Oh, look, when it comes to I have the belief that if you're a new trainer, if you're not upskilling, if you're not doing ongoing education, you're not going to last in the industry. And now with this ChatGPT, and it's all the exams, all the stuff that it's passing, you can just go to ChatGPT and get a shitload of stuff off ChatGPT. That's actually going to help you excel. So who knows? You may not need to pay a $5,000 course. You can just go to ChatGPT. You can get all the information off that. That's why. I think in that sense, it's going to really flourish in that sense.
Interesting.
Because like I said, I mean, if you're not upskilling, if you're not doing ongoing education, you're not going to last. And so ChatGPT it's answered every question that I've asked it. So it's going to be a very valuable tool for education and upskilling.
That's awesome. That's great. Okay. Based on what you guys are saying, it sounds like for the most part, this AI revolution is probably going to be a positive for people's fitness journeys and for the industry and the trainers as well. But listen, guys, this was a very fascinating conversation, but I know, Mick, you said you got to go train a client. So we'll wrap it up here. Before we say goodbye, I have a confession to make. We used ChatGPT to write the script for this entire podcast episode. No, I'm kidding. We didn't. We don't write scripts. We don't write scripts. We just freestyle.
Yeah, we just go top of our heads.
Exactly.
The things with ChatGPT, look, I don't know if this might be a controversial topic. I asked it how many genders there are, and it lied, and it didn't know. So I don't know. Might not be that trustworthy.
Yeah.
Politically correct.
If you ask it, is this treatment safe and effective? It might tell you, yes, it's completely safe and effective. You should take 5 of them, and you should take one every month.
I think it's woke. So I don't know if I'm going to trust ChatGPT anymore. I don't know, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right, guys, fascinating stuff. Hope everyone listening enjoyed this conversation. Very interesting times. If you guys have any comments, any feedback, any thoughts on these topics, just drop us a comment and subscribe to the channel to support us. And that just shows us that you guys value these conversations and these insights. So we keep doing it. So be sure to subscribe, hit like on the video to help it in the algorithm, and stay tuned for the next episode. That's it for us. Goodbye, everyone.